United States President Donald Trump is sharply changing his rhetoric regarding Russia's war against Ukraine. Now, the main focus of the American president is on military aid to Ukraine and the impossibility of continuing negotiations with Putin. The day before, Trump held the longest press conference on this topic and gave a clear signal. The United States and Ukraine have apparently been working for several weeks to increase military aid from the United States of America. And today, the behind-the-scenes part of these negotiations has emerged, not just the public statements. And the key point is that Trump has finally admitted that Putin is actually deceiving him, and everything he says about wanting to end the war is complete and total lies. My name is Pechii. Today is July 9th on the calendar. Let's discuss this topic together and go through everything step by step. But before we start, I ask you to subscribe to this channel, leave a like, write any comment, and be sure to subscribe to my Telegram channel, Pechii News. The link to it is in the description of this video. So today the publication shares insights on how Trump is coming to the decision to resume arms supplies to Ukraine. President Trump's publicly announced decision to send defensive weapons to Ukraine came after days of consultations with aides and other world leaders about where exactly these weapons would actually come from. And looking ahead, I want to share some information from Zelenskyy. We will discuss it further. But today, it is also reported that the White House has apparently asked the Pentagon to consider options for supplying additional weapons to Ukraine, in particular, a system. If this delivery happens, it will be the first time the Trump administration provides aid that was not previously authorized by Joe Biden. The United States Army has the capability to transfer one system to Ukraine, and we're talking about a full battery here, which means several launchers, a radar, and a command post. Well, and this is a very important and pivotal moment, because just recently the Pentagon actually suspended the delivery of some weapons to Ukraine, including Patriot missile interceptors. Now, according to sources, these weapons are already on their way. But more importantly, public statements and the real situation are very different. Because many have already criticized Donald Trump for presenting the resumption of already planned deliveries as new arms supplies to Ukraine. But as it turned out, Trump is also looking for alternative solutions, including insisting that Germany send its own Patriot battery to Ukraine. And as Trump stated back on Monday, we will have to send more weapons to Ukraine, defensive weapons. They have to defend themselves. And here I want to point out one very important thing right away. The completely strange term defensive weapons was invented back during Barack Obama's time to rhetorically show that the United States is not helping Ukraine to attack. But in essence, any weapon that the United States is now supplying to Ukraine is defensive. Even those that can strike Russia are also considered defensive weapons. Because in this war, Ukraine is the victim, the one defending itself, so all the weapons are defensive weapons. But, as we can see, Trump also decided to use exactly this wording. Immediately after the statement by Trump, the Pentagon also made a statement, quote, "At the direction of President Trump, the United States Department of Defense will send additional defensive weapons to Ukraine so that Ukrainians can defend themselves while we work to ensure a lasting peace." And here the fine line is revealed. Trump and his team are reluctantly willing to part with their Patriot interceptors. And Trump insists that the Europeans send more of their own money and weapons. Although Germany has already made it clear that the Germans are ready to buy at least 2 Patriot systems from the United States for Ukraine, and are also willing to invest money in purchasing American weapons for our country. This model suits Donald Trump quite well, but it turns out there are some nuances there as well. In fact, the change in Trump's rhetoric became clearer last Friday, when he had a phone call with the president of Ukraine, Volodymyr Zelenskyy. And later, both sides stated that this was the best conversation between the two presidents during Donald Trump's second term. Trump told Zelenskyy that he wants to help strengthen Ukraine's air defense, but emphasized that the United States was forced to pause the latest arms shipment to check its own stockpiles. He said it was a routine procedure, not a sign of protest against supplying weapons to Ukraine. Moreover, at today's press conference, Trump hinted that he didn't fully know about the Pentagon's actions. Well, some media outlets in the United States have already stated that Pete Hegseth, the United States Secretary of Defense, really didn't inform Trump about this move. And here's the strangest part. According to two sources from the White House, Trump promised the building to immediately send as many as 10 Patriot interceptor missiles. And this, to put it mildly, surprised many people, because in the suspended aid package, which was already in Poland and was already on its way to Kyiv, there were 30 such missiles. That's just one package. Here, Trump loudly declares that he will deliver as many as 10 Patriot interceptor missiles. Not to mention that 10 missiles are insufficient to repel even one Russian ballistic attack. Nevertheless, the White House urged people to see this step as just the first stage. Trump reportedly vowed to Zelenskyy to help find alternative means to arm the Ukrainian military, including with Patriot air defense systems. And let me remind you once again that the day before, German Chancellor Friedrich Merz called Trump to ask him to release the interceptors that had been halted on their way to Ukraine. So, in other words, Europe is making it clear that it stands with Ukraine until the end. Moreover, Merz told Trump that Germany is ready to buy batteries from the United States and send them to Ukraine. For his part, Trump offered Germany to sell one of its batteries to our country. He said it would be fair if American and European allies shared the cost of this purchase, but one system should come from Germany and one from the United States of America. At the moment, it is known that Trump and Merz have not reached an agreement, but officials say that discussions are ongoing. A German official claims that Germany has given Ukraine a very high percentage of its Patriots, even more than the United States in relative terms. That's why Merz insists that the states sell more weapons from their own stockpiles. And here an inconvenient truth for the West is revealed, and on this point I'll quote Axios. With dwindling stockpiles amid numerous ongoing wars, there is growing concern among NATO countries about the use of munitions, especially interceptors for air defense, faster than they can be produced. Getting just one Patriot missile is not the same as going to Walmart, grabbing 10 off the shelf and going home, one of Trump's advisors told the publication. Well, that's why Trump is looking for a way out of this situation. Here, United States Secretary of Defense Pete Hegseth has already stated that there are American Patriot missile batteries in Europe, which are based in Germany and Greece. And now the White House is offering to buy them out itself and transfer them to Ukraine. So the issue here is not about money anymore. It's about the fact that neither Germany nor the United States is in a hurry to be the first to part with their batteries. Well, as you can see, even Trump is now saying that yes, we can buy them ourselves for Ukraine. The only question is which systems we are actually willing to give up. And here in Washington, they make the argument that the United States recently carried out the largest ever Patriot missile salvo in history to protect American troops in Qatar from an Iranian attack. And it turned out that these systems are actually very much needed by the Americans themselves in the Middle East, while the Europeans don't use them, so they should be the ones to give theirs up. Of course, there's also a political undertone here. Trump is worried about more than just the stockpiles. He persistently maintains that this war doesn't belong to him, but rather to Biden and Zelenskyy. But now he's afraid that if they directly increase arms supplies to Ukraine, it will supposedly become his war. However, Trump overcame his own stance on the use of military force when he bombed Iran's nuclear facilities. And some of his advisors now believe that he may also find justification for sending purely defensive weapons to Ukraine. And say, no, this isn't my war, I'm just helping them defend themselves. And here Axios writes an important point. Trump's thinking is based on his growing irritation with dictator Putin, who unleashed a massive air barrage on Ukraine. After hanging up the phone with the United States president on Thursday, Putin basically just spat in Donald Trump's face. Well, it's already known that Zelenskyy and his team will meet in Rome later this week with Trump's envoy Keith Kellogg. It's known that Zelenskyy is already in Italy, and they hope to get more clarity about the future of weapon supplies from the United States. And as sources say, it will become finally clear this week how much weaponry Trump is preparing to send to Ukraine. The question isn't if he'll send something, but rather how much he's willing to send. So here, we've finally moved off dead center, and we'll keep watching together as the situation develops. So I'll leave it at that for now. Share your opinions and conclusions in the comments below this episode. Subscribe to the channel, hit the bell, and don't forget to like. If you want to support the work of this channel, you can do so with any donation using the links and details in the description of this video or by using the QR code on your screen. That's all for now. Take care. Goodbye, everyone.